Good morning! It is Saturday, April 25th, 2026, and this is your deep dive daily briefing where we give you a comprehensive analysis of the pivotal events that have truly defined the last 24 hours. We begin on the world stage, where we're seeing this incredible tension, intense diplomacy on one side, and ongoing kinetic friction on the other. Right now, the Middle East is really a world on a wire. So here's the central contradiction that's playing out. On one hand, you have this glimmer of a potential breakthrough. The Iranian foreign minister has just arrived in Islamabad for some very high-level talks. But at the exact same time, the U.S. Department of Defense has confirmed that the naval blockade of Iran is going to continue, and they say without hesitation. It's really a classic case of talking peace while preparing for, well, anything but. So what's the broader strategic context here? Well, first, the White House has just extended the Israel-Lebanon ceasefire for another 3 weeks. Now, that's a clear attempt to try and isolate these different conflicts, to carve out some space for a bigger U.S.-Iran settlement. But Tehran is holding firm. They're saying any further talks are conditioned on lifting that very blockade. And meanwhile, President Trump has issued a pretty stern warning against using sea mines in the Persian Gulf. It's a signal that even though offers are on the table, U.S. patience definitely has its limits. Okay, let's shift gears now because this instability, it isn't just diplomatic. It has a very real price, and we are seeing the economic shockwaves from this just reverberate across the entire globe. This brings us to a really important concept: economic spillovers. The International Monetary Fund is putting out a serious warning. They're saying that while this conflict might be geographically contained, its impact is absolutely not. These localized events are spreading out, and they're affecting everything from growth and inflation to government spending, and they're doing it worldwide. And take a look at this. It really illustrates the cost perfectly. The IMF has now officially downgraded its global growth projection for this year to just 3.1%. At the same time, global inflation is projected to hit 4.4%, and that's largely being driven by those soaring energy costs. And then look at that last bar. Nations are ramping up defense spending to an average of 2.7% of their GDP. That's basically a shift to a wartime economic footing, and you can bet it's crowding out other essential spending. And right here in the United States, that pressure is just immense. The national debt is approaching a staggering $39 trillion. Now, to put that into perspective for you, that figure has pretty much doubled in just the last 15 years. Doubled! So how exactly does this pressure show up? Well, a few ways. First, you've got the 10-year Treasury yield sitting at 4.31%, which tells us the market is pricing in some serious long-term risk. Second, the average interest on that debt has climbed to 3.35%, which makes those interest payments a massive government expense. And finally, all this creates a real disconnect. The Fed is hinting at maybe one rate cut this year while the market is betting on several. That gap, well, that's a recipe for some major volatility. It's becoming clear this instability isn't just some temporary disruption. It is forcing a permanent rewiring of the entire global machine. And that goes for everything from technology to trade. Let's start with technology. This new era of agentic AI is driving what you could call an infrastructure supercycle. We're looking at a 14% compound annual growth rate for data centers right through 2030. Think about that. To support it, we need a staggering 100 gigawatts of new capacity, and some of the tech giants are planning to spend up to $185 billion on this year alone. But here's the catch. This historic growth is hitting a very real, very physical bottleneck: energy. Our existing grids, they just can't handle it. So what's happening? These tech hyperscalers are actually being forced to become energy producers themselves. They're funding their own solutions, making major investments in things like modular nuclear power. Suddenly, energy security is just as critical as software innovation. And it's not just the digital world that's being rewired. Look at the physical world of trade. The instability in the Strait of Hormuz has forced most shipping to take the long way around, diverting all the way around the Cape of Good Hope. That one simple change adds up to 30 days to transit times, and it spiked container rates by as much as 25% on some of the most important routes. And the scale of this, it's honestly hard to comprehend. Just since February, we've seen over 34,000 vessel diversions recorded. So this isn't some temporary workaround. This is a fundamental reshaping of global commerce as we know it.
And all this brings us to a pretty unavoidable conclusion, one that's being shared by logistics experts all over the world. This is not a glitch. This is a permanent structural rewiring of world trade.
So, when you put it all together, what does this all add up to? It seems we are entering a new age of instability, one that's defined by higher costs and higher risks, across the board, from the battlefield all the way to the balance sheet. Let's just compare the two for a second. The old model, the one we relied on for decades, was all about low-cost, just-in-time delivery. It was globalized, it was efficient. The new model we're building now, it's pretty much the opposite. It's high cost, and it relies on regional inventory buffers. The new watchwords aren't efficiency anymore. They're resilience and redundancy.
And so this leaves us with a final and I think critical question. The world we knew has been fundamentally rewired. So, in this new, more fractured, and more expensive reality, what is the new price of stability? That concludes this daily briefing. We will, of course, continue to track these developments as they unfold.